It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and this is the breakfast show. It's the new year, and we're starting on a serious note. We'll be bringing you all the different issues that happen in our communities. We talk politics, we talk social issues, and of course, it's the new year. There are new things that people are doing. There is new hope, and everyone hopes the new year brings a new spirit, and the things move their way. So we always have the energy when the year starts. We have plans, and the question is, are you going to carry your plans throughout the year, or something comes up? And I know ngamnya uqalisa abantu bafuna ukuya gym, abantu bafuna lose weight, abanye bafuna gain weight, abanye bafuna ukwenza imali, into ezinjalo, abanye bafuna ukuyekela alcohol ngoba ibajombisile ngoDecember. You know, ziningi izinto ezifuna ukuzichiya ngoJanuary, but kusiyafika uFebruary abaningi sabe sesikhohliwe. Anyway, today in our program I'll be talking to an author. She writes books, and we want to know about her, what inspires her to write books, and what stories can we learn. I'll be talking to Simingenkosi Nkala. She has written 2 books so far, but one of the books that she has recently written is called The Dancing Mountain. So it's quite an interesting story. We want to know about the Dancing Mountain. So I'm not sure whether she's writing about Dinjelele, but what I know is that whatever Dancing Mountain it has to be Kalanga, because it's only Kalangas who have the powers to do such things and have mountains that can dance. Welcome to Yes. So I'm just interested that, are you writing about Kalanga Mountains? Because I don't think you have the power to be having dancing mountains.
We do actually. But you're bringing a very interesting side to the story. Of course, it's not necessarily the mountains in Zengwane or the Kalanga Mountains. It's a story that is written in a fictional way, but of course it is borrowed from reality.
Yeah, you are not new to writing, and you've written 1 book before. Tell us about your interest in writing. When does this start?
Writing with me, it's something that I can say I was born with. I'm not sure if I can call it a gift or a talent, but it is something that is really within me. So basically, I've been writing ever since I learned how to hold a pencil, a pen. But on publishing, I actually published my first book in March 2020, which is The Dancing Mountain. Dear Black Child, It Is Okay. Well, obviously, it's not the first time that I published a story. Around 2006, 2007, I think, when we used to have the Trends magazine in Bulawayo, I had a couple of stories published there.
So you have been writing. So in 2020, you have your first book, Dear Black Child. What is the book all about? What inspired that book?
Well, this book here, my first book, that would be Dear Black Child, It Is Okay, talks about trauma, childhood trauma. It talks about culture in a way. The culture that I was trying to bring out in writing Dear Black Child is the culture of loaning children. In our societies and communities, there's this thing whereby and then a distant aunt or a distant relative, maybe they don't have children at all, or they don't have a girl child or a boy child. Then that child gets loaned to an aunt or to a relative. Now, this story tries to narrate or follow the story of a child who is born in a certain area, and then they are moved to a different area. So it follows the dynamics there, and how the child adapts from a new environment to another environment, and the life they live.
You know, as in saying, an African saying, I think it takes a village to raise a child, and I guess it came from that you know, it wasn't. In our society, you find this normal with the nyamba nyehlala wogogo or auntie, but not so far. Yes, this learning. kahle mani laphana. Kuyabantwana ukuthi vele abantwana, you know, especially kwesinye isikhathi kwakube labanye abantwana abaningi begcina bengabayenelisi ukuthi bebakhulise bese siyakhulela somewhere. Can we really say it's learning them?
I don't know, maybe for lack of a better term, I would say learning. But the thing is, as you are saying now, it's something that is there, it's prevalent in our societies, in our communities, whereby we are kaya and then you end up going to grow ugomalume or somewhere else. It really has advantages and disadvantages. So now the story in Dear Black Child, it tries to follow that line to say, yes, it is advantageous for the child because like you are saying, or umuzi kunabantwana abaningi and they are unable to look after the children, and then umntwana sesuka lapha sesiyakhula somewhere else. It gives them an opportunity in life. Maybe they'll go to school, but they were unable to go to school. They'll get some things, but in that process, there are also disadvantages that now this book tries to look into that side. Because obviously in everything, we always try to talk about the bright side of things. And yet the darker side of things sometimes has such an impact and effect on a growing child. And you'll find that one of the things that inspired the book is that in our communities, we've got adults, people that are struggling with past trauma, people that can't let go of what happened to them, of who they are as a result of what happened to them. And we don't always talk about it in our societies that so and so was abused at this stage and that stage. That is why they behave this way, or that is why they are this way. So this story tries to follow those traumatic events in a child's life to all the way to adulthood. Hence the title that says it is okay. To say okay, because it is a book that tries to encourage healing, actually, that even if you were a victim of a certain circumstance or situation, it is okay. You are here today. You made it. You can still embark on the journey of healing and to make the best of your life instead of being stuck in there to saying this happened to me or that happened to me, then I can't be a better person as a result of that.
Yeah, you know, and abazukulu bami abaseGoli, you know, because babetshona you know, but ngabantu beseGoli ngoDisemba babuya labantwana, you know, they will come to ekhaya and what. But nabazukulu bami now because bese-university, you see, so baya lokubuya ekhaya because bane-choice. So every time ngikhuluma labo ngithi kanti liyabuya nini? But you know, ukubuya ekhaya, the trauma that we went through, and in talking to you, you've talked, you know, we went trauma 4 times. Is it? I mean, sitting here and I'm asking myself on behalf of abadala basekhaya, is it trauma, or you guys when you've gone now? I'm saying you guys, including me. Sahambe Goli, Sahambe UK. We've seen the other life. We look back, city party, we're traumatized. But probably besides sexual harassment that happens, but the chores that happen, do we consider those things trauma, or there are worse things that happen than that?
I think the way you're putting it is actually interesting, because obviously growing up there, like myself, I grew up in Makai, right? Growing up there, you don't necessarily look at it and say like, I'm being traumatized right now, or this is abusive, and you know, those kind of things. When you're growing up in it, within that community, and these things, except the ones that you're mentioning, when they happen, they're not necessarily viewed as a traumatic thing. And obviously, once we leave that setting and you're out there and you look back, now we have these terms that we're using, like the trauma one, that that was abusive, that was traumatic. But now the reason why we have to take time to look into these things is because when you observe like people around you or people around the world generally, when you're observing, you see people are going through depression, people are going through so many. And when you're looking closely, when you do have a chance, an opportunity to look closely, you'll find that this person is struggling with certain things that happened during their childhood or sometime in their life. In that, the fact that they can't move past that, or the fact that they've come to a point to realize that this is the reason why I'm stuck, because this and that happened to me, is the reason why we look back and say, we need to heal our families. We need to heal our brothers and sisters. We need to heal our communities. And how can we do it? That's when I come in and write something like this, because it's following the lives of people, and it's actually trying to encourage healing, as I said, to say, we are not what happened to us, whether it was bad, whether it was extreme, whether it was just a little bit, but you are never what happened to you. That was just a journey of your life. That is something that happened along the way. At best, you can take lessons out of it. At worst, of course, we do have people that don't see a way out of situations. And this is just my attempt to say, look, this is something that has happened to a lot of people. As you were saying, which growing up, it's something that was there that is happening. This is something that has happened to a lot of people. And it might have happened to a particular individual in a unique way that concerns you as a person. But now you can heal from it. You can take lessons out of it. You can look at it with different eyes than just say, it was hectic, it was hard for me. I grew up in Makaya, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, I couldn't access this and that. And then you allow that to block you. You can break free from that, and you can heal, and you can do amazing things from there.
Yeah, and it's an interesting conversation, issues where people grow up and how it affects their life, and sometimes but moving to the book that you've written, it's quite I think it's a new book, and it's dancing the dancing mountains. What inspires you? What's the story behind the dancing mountains?
Well, to answer what inspires me will be everyday daily phenomena inspires me, really. Observing and looking at life from different angles is what really inspires me. But talking of the dancing mountains, the inspiration behind the dancing mountains is very interesting, because I always try to own it. But at some point in time, I realize I'm not really being honest if I'm trying to own the story and say I just created it from nothing. Like I was sitting there and then I just got inspired. Because the Dancing Mountains is a story that I can say came to me. I don't know if it makes sense when I say the story came to me, but I was actually sleeping at the time when I started to write the Dancing Mountains. This is around 2006, 2007, around those years. So I was sleeping, and then in my sleep, this idea comes to me. I don't know if I can call it a dream, or somehow something was spoken to me in that particular night. And then this thing was more like somebody giving you an instruction to say, this is what you're going to write next. As I said, I've been writing for like forever. So it was like somebody telling me, like, this is what you're going to write next, and giving me the details of what I'm going to write about, and everything about the Dancing Mountains. So I woke up that night, I took a notebook and a pen, I wrote everything down, and then I went back to sleep. That's from when the Dancing Mountains started to be written.
So the story is definitely is about power. It's about, I think you're also, it's about the girl child, if I might say so. And the trying to give us the history of Umzingwane in a way. And I would say, why particularly Umzingwane?
Like I said, it's not necessarily a story that I created from thin air. I'm a creative, I'm forever creating things. But when this story came to me, it just kind of came with features and things. Now, when I woke up and I was writing what I had written the night before, Umzingwane just came to me. And I kept thinking, and then I said, okay, I put it down. I continued writing, and then the mountains, the everything that is described in the Dancing Mountains and Umzingwane, for me, it just, came out there, and it just rhymed together. And I said, you know what? Okay, it's going to be Umzingwane Kingdom.
Yeah, maybe.
Obviously, for me, when this book comes up, it talks more. It touches on a lot of things as it does, but for me, culture, traditions, customs, and things around that is the greatest reason why the book was written.
Before what I found interesting when I opened the book and the first page or the first sentence, which says, I mean, along the lines that the Mzingwane kingdom existed almost to its entirety on the shoulders of its women. You know, and I said, so I saying it exists on the shoulders of its women. And I said, okay, so this is about the role of women in leadership. You know, what is it about the women that we are trying to tell us, and the culture of that we have seen over the years in different kingdoms and different chieftainships?
Yes, this kingdom existed almost to its entirety on the shoulders of its women. Right, that sentence on its own right there, it tries to bring about the story that says in our African cultures, women have been in positions of leadership. Women have been for the longest time leading, have been for the longest time put in roles that I remember in our previous story of Dear Black Child, you mentioned that we are a village, or we were a village that raises a child. So in that village, raising a child, women in our cultures, in our traditions, have always been cornerstones, people that have been there, people that have been taking on roles of either being a queen or seers or just mothers in general, building communities and societies. So this statement on its own right there, it tries to say to the world, Africa has always been matriarchal in a sense, that it has always given roles. It has never looked down upon its women, rather, let me say like that. Like it has been a community of people that understands that women are capable, and hence they were given those roles.
So would I be correct if I say your book is about the power and the power struggles in a particular community, you know, the chieftainship, you know, abantu baloyana, balunywa zinyoka, bayafa, and there's some who feel like, you know, he should have been the king, but because wayemncane, you know, because bahamba kobani bani, you know, which modern day, you know, chieftainships are, you know, that disputes about chieftainship. Is your book about power?
Not necessarily, no. Like I said, the view that I had when I was writing this book, it's more to do with traditions, customs, and the culture of the people. Of course, when you're putting it that way, the power will come into play as well. Because if we're talking about roles, we're talking about kings, we're talking about queens, we're talking about how a particular place is living, is being ruled, and all of those things. It really does bring about the power aspect. But in my writing, I wasn't really like totally focusing on the power part. In my writing, I was focusing more on the cultural side, or on the traditions. As you're saying that maybe the other one, they start saying he's too young or he's not fit, and that power structure that you're mentioning then comes about. But now my focus is on the part where, because these people are heavily dependent on their ancestral directives in Umzingwane village. So now this power structure that you're talking about, from my end, I'll be focusing more on what happens. Is it something that they decide themselves, or is it something that there's another power that does the decision making? And do they follow that? Do they take that in, or do they ignore that? Those kind of things.
Yeah, maybe before I ask you the other questions, I would love to ask you at the beginning, but I decided to ask you at this particular point. Your upbringing. Tell us about your childhood. You know, where do you grow up? You know, how is it like, and how does it influence your writing?
My upbringing, I was born and bred in Matabeleland South. That will be Felapusi, and Chief Maduna. I had a normal upbringing, just like, I mean, every other child that grows up in a rural setting. How does it influence my writing? It does in a sense, but like I said, ever since I was able to hold a pencil or a pen, I've been writing. So in my view, I think the writing does not necessarily have to do with where I grew up or how I grew up. Even if I grew up in a different space, in a different setting, I think I would still be writing.
Yeah, in a book, there's a character that I find interesting in many ways because of the name, and you have a character called Nsika. You know, how does he come up, and what central role does he play to your story? You know,
Nsiga plays a
Nsika
very
is, you know.
Yes, Nsigayezo. The full name will be Nsigayezo. This looks back into, like I say, that this is fiction, but fiction that is borrowed from realities. When you look back into the names of people in the olden days, people used to have names that had meanings to them, like Nsigayezwe. Nsigayezwe will be the pillar of Israel. So when this child is born and is named Nsigayezwe, what then they are saying about this child, they are already automatically saying ukuthi lo mntwana lo uzoba iphila, uzoba insika yezwe lonke. So I was looking at the naming of children in our communities, in our societies, and in the olden days. You'll find that every name that anyone had, it had a meaning or it carried something that it referred to. So Unsiga, even if his childhood, he didn't know that there was some position that he's meant to occupy when he grows up. The elders already knew. So when they named him Sigayezwe, they knew that something was going to come up in his growing up. He was going to be a pillar in the community, and hence he grows up to be king one day.
You know, one of the things, like I think I noticed, like you're talking about tradition and how cultures, but it's interesting how, you know, women play a central role in your book and the storytelling. You know, how Okokumomsong or, you know, come in and do this. Was it deliberate that, you know, you are trying to project the role of women in society?
Yes, it was very deliberate because if you look at the setting of the book is in pre-colonial Africa, at a time when things were different, they lived different, they believed different. And so in that society, the way they lived, their culture and everything that they believed in, it was more matriarchal. So obviously in a matriarchal setting, women are going to play a lot of important roles here.
I know it's ukubhala ngesiNdebele is so challenging, but would it have been more interesting and more nicer to write this kind of book ngesiNdebele?
I think it would. I really think it would. I consider
Because I
that
find some
over
of
a
the
long
pieces would have, you know, ngawukhuluma ngesiko, ngesintu, you know, isibongo, and trying to bring the expressions in English, you scratch your head. But if you were to write the whole book in Ndebele, it would have a different meaning and probably emotion altogether.
Definitely, it would carry a different weight than it does right now. But the thing is, I consider that over time, since I just mentioned that this book has been written over a long period of time, since around 2006 up to 2013 October when it was published. So during these years, over this period of time, there were a lot of changes that happened to the work, and there were a lot of considerations whether I should turn it to Ndebele, whether I should change it here and there. But now I looked at it from this perspective to say, if it is written in Ndebele, it's only a certain set group of people that would understand what it says, those emotions that were captured and everything. But if it's written in English as is, right now, people from all over the world have bought the book. A lot of people have commented. Some people relate to the story. Some people want to know more why and all of those things. So you get to reach a wider audience when you write in a language that they won't struggle with understanding. But if you wrote in your language, you'd obviously have written something for you and your people and a few other people that will understand your language, and then it limits the whole thing.
Yeah, maybe one of the things is distribution and the accessibility of the book. Where can people get it? How accessible is the book?
Well, the book is very accessible. In the UK, yeah, I'm here. People can get the book from me and other distributors and bookshops. People can get the book from Amazon, of which anywhere in the world you can, find Amazon.
Except,
People can get the
except in Zimbabwe, because
yeah.
Amazon is staying a bond, you see, most Zimbabweans don't have. So Zimbabwe is always a challenge when it comes to distribution.
Distribution, yes. But now, what we have done, we have distribution points within Zimbabwe. That is, in Bulawayo, we have distributors around the city, and in Harare, we have got distributors. The same thing goes for Botswana, we have distributors, and in South Africa, we have distributors. So everywhere where you are, if a person was to say, oh, I'm in Francistown, I would love to buy your book, where can I go? There is always a distributor near you that you can go to and get a book.
Yeah. So I mean, writing is something that really a lot of people wish, but it's so difficult. And I know that there are a lot of young writers who want to write and get themselves published. As we get to the close, I mean, tell us about what can people do when they want to publish their books? How easy is it, and how costly is it?
Publishing a book is not easy because it will depend on a lot of factors. I'd still encourage whoever wants to publish a book to publish, because I believe that for someone to get to a point to say, I want to write, they have a message. Writing, like music, like any other art form, is something that we use to storytell, to share a message. So if there is somebody out there who feels like I have something to write, but I'm not sure how to go about it, I would encourage them to find help or assistance from people that have done it around their communities, or whoever you can reach that you can get information and guidance from. But obviously, it's not an easy process, from the writing to the editing to the publishing. It's really not an easy process, but it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the second book that you've published. And what does the future look like when it comes to writing?
The future looks very bright when it comes to writing, because, like I said, I've been personally writing for a long time. So for someone who will say, I have a story, but I don't know how to go about it, I've had a story for a very, very long time. Not just this one, the other one, and many other unpublished stories that I have written. So the future looks bright because I have a lot of material written. I have a lot of material that is to come. I believe, because now I've started publishing, which obviously at a point I was not comfortable with, because with publishing, like I said, you get a message in its raw state and form, right? And when you want to bring it out to the world, sometimes it depends on who you publish with, how you publish. The editing process sometimes can take away some of the things that you really wanted to get out there. And it can be uncomfortable sometimes, especially for myself, because I'd really love for each and every message to have that chance to go out there and have its own impact and have its own way with people without it being doctored a lot, but it's part of the process. So yeah, the future really looks bright.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much for sharing with us, your journey into writing and the two books that you've written. But particularly, we were talking about the Dancing Mountain, quite an interesting book, and I would encourage people to read it. It is a unique way of telling the story. But it's not the first book; it's the second one actually. And so today in the program, I was talking to Simingenkosi Nkala. She's an author, and we were talking about writing and reflecting, because it's not just the art of writing, but when people write, they reflect on their society, they raise issues that are of interest, and issues that might many other people would not have looked at, and look at the way we grow up, some of the things that we then say, schooler and it was normal. But now we think, when we abuse, maybe our cultures need to change and so many things. And we have heard that, women don't play a significant role, but women play, even in the chief or is Inkosi. And they usually is mama most of the times who make the decisions. So liyaqala liyokhuluma lo mama ukuthi sifuna iland, umama bese tshela uchief, bese lihamba kwichief and then he pretends like he's the one who makes the decision. When umama vele uthi ubana ngifuna ukumbona lapha egumeni lo chief la bebe ngasabambeki. So yet we have given an impression that it's the men who run the world, but I think it's the women. In Zimbabwe ngakhaya ukuthi abanye first lady ba powerful njani, then you understand who runs Zimbabwe. Anyway, I will not get political. It was quite interesting talking to you, and I hope people are going to look for the book and read, because it really enriches our culture and the culture of reading. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and let's meet again in other programs.